Welcome to Grad-post. I'm your host, Brian S. Mitchell, and we're here to talk about life before, during, and after graduate school, and whether an advanced degree is right for you. I'll draw upon my experiences as a graduate dean and research mentor, as well as my network of students, colleagues, and experts to bring you the most complete information on graduate education that I can. Epi alert, this is an editorial podcast. I promised I'd warn you when it happens. I ran across an old article in Moneywatch the other day entitled 12 Reasons Not to Get the PhD by Lynn O'Shaughnessy. It's now over a decade old, having been published in 2012, but I found myself reading what are still some of the myths used today to justify why advanced degrees, the PhD in particular, just aren't worth it. So, in the spirit of objectivity, I thought I'd list these reasons, give them some updated numbers, and myth bust where possible. If you've listened to any of my previous podcasts, you'll know that I'm an advocate for advanced degrees. So it should come as no surprise that I'll mostly refute what appears in this article. But hey, it's my show, and if you're listening, you're probably at least somewhat interested in advanced degrees. I've lightly edited some of Ms. O'Shaughnessy's points for brevity and grammar, but she starts her list of 12 by stating,
a PhD takes twice as long as a bachelor's degree to complete. The average student takes 8.2 years to slog through a PhD program and is 33 years old before earning that top diploma. By that age, most Americans with mere bachelor's degrees are well into establishing themselves professionally.
Yeah, and beef Wellington takes longer to make than a bologna sandwich. So, by that logic, we should always eat bologna sandwiches since they don't take as long to make. And not only those with a, quote, mere bachelor's degree, end quote, which is kind of condescending and antithetical, have established themselves professionally by age 33, extrapolating backwards would show that those with a high school diploma will be even further along in their careers, and those who dropped out of middle school must be gazillionaires. A high school education is apparently overrated. We also see in this statement how statistics can be misleading. The average time to degree for a research doctorate, the PhD as opposed to the MD or JD, actually comes in 3 flavors. According to the National Science Foundation, National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, NCSES, the first flavor is time to degree since earning a bachelor's degree, which was 8.6 years in 2022, the last year for which we have statistics. The time to degree since starting graduate school, however, was 7.2 years. And NCSES recently started tracking the time to degree since starting the doctoral program, which was only 5.7 years for all disciplines in 2022. The difference between the time to degree from starting graduate school and entering the doctoral program is because some programs, certainly not all, first require completion of a master's degree. It's a little misleading to include that time in the time to the PhD since you're actually getting 2 degrees. The shortest time to degree since starting the doctoral program was 5 years in several disciplines, and the longest was 7.5 in anthropology. There are no statistics on how many students considered it a slog. In terms of age of graduation, the average age of a graduate has nothing to do with anything unless you're an ageist. People start and stop their pursuit of an advanced degree just like anyone else in any other profession. But really, this wasted time argument misses the point. Getting an advanced degree is establishing yourself professionally. Perhaps those who don't go to college are establishing themselves professionally right out of high school. But so are those who go to college and those who go to graduate school. They just aren't establishing themselves professionally through employment. They're establishing themselves professionally through skills development and networking. The statistics bear this out. According to the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce's Learning and Earning by Degrees 2024 report, the median cost-adjusted lifetime earnings are higher for those with a graduate degree than those with the bachelor's and associate's degrees across all racial and ethnic categories. The net gain across the U.S. workforce is a staggering $2.8 trillion in net lifetime earnings gains for those with graduate degrees over those with bachelor's degrees. Individually, the median expected lifetime earnings for those with doctoral degrees are $4 million, master's degrees $3.2 million, bachelor's degrees $2.8 million, and high school $1.6 million. Yes, you need to factor in lost wages, debt level, and time-adjusted value of money, But from a purely income standpoint, which we all know is not the full story, the advantages of a graduate degree are clear.
2. Professors will exploit you. It takes forever to earn a doctorate degree because graduate students are routinely treated like slaves. Grad students perform the grunt work that professors find distasteful, such as teaching undergraduates, grading papers, holding office hours, and playing mother hen to undergrads.
Wow, where did you go to school? This sounds more like a rant about spoiled undergraduates than it does about oppressed graduate students, but there's apparently nothing good about college. The undergraduates don't want to be there, the professors don't want to be there, and the graduate students are caught in between. Are there parts of the job that suck? Sure, just like any other job. But the data just don't support the miserableness contentions. National statistics on graduate student job satisfaction are hard to come by, but some universities track and publish this information voluntarily. For example, Vanderbilt University found in a recent survey that 80% of respondents were satisfied with being a doctoral student. Cornell University's Doctoral Experience Survey dashboard shows that 82% of respondents listed their overall experience as good, very good, or excellent. I could go on, but the image of the disgruntled graduate students suffering through a doctoral program is just not accurate.
3. You could drop out. Only about 57% of doctoral students will get their PhD within 10 years of starting graduate school.
I don't know where to start with this one. The fact that 57% of doctoral students complete their PhD within 10 years of starting graduate school has nothing to do with dropping out. I could infer from these statistics that the other 43% completed in more than 10 years and that the dropout rate was 0. Neither of those views are correct, of course. Although 10 years is the generally accepted time frame for looking at doctoral completion, it doesn't tell the whole story. For comparison, again, according to the NSF's National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, the equivalent 6-year completion rate for an undergraduate degree in the U.S. is only 64%, only slightly higher than the doctoral completion rate. And we know that not all undergrads drop out. They switch schools. They take gap years. The same thing can happen in doctoral programs. What you really want to look at are attrition rates. These data are a little harder to come by, but a 2015 report using student-level data from the Council of Graduate Schools puts the 7-year attrition rate at about 31% in the life and health sciences and as much as 47% in the social and behavioral sciences. The more troubling part of these statistics is that the 7-year attrition rate is even higher for students from underrepresented minorities. Students cite lack of financial support as one of their key reasons for non-completion. Rather than jeopardizing our workforce and telling our brightest talent not to attain higher level skills, we need to find ways of making it more affordable and equitable for them to do so. Speaking of financial support,
4. You might end up on food stamps. In the 3 years since the 2008-9 recession, the number of PhDs who filed for food stamps tripled to more than 33,655 in 2010, according to the Chronicle of Higher Education's Urban Institute. In part, that's because part-time professors who are paid by the class can earn less than university secretaries.
I won't even comment on the word secretaries, but by all means pick the years of the Great Recession to make your case about lack of employment for PhDs. Didn't more journalists end up on food stamps during that time period too? I wonder if there were more stockbrokers and breadlines during the Great Depression, and if software engineers and programmers had trouble finding jobs after the dot-com bust of 2000. The food stamps program, then and now called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, but who would expect someone in the business world to know that, saw a doubling of participation from 26.3 million people in FY 2007 to 44.7 million in FY 2011. If the Chronicle's data are correct, and I have no reason to doubt them, then PhDs accounted for less than 0.1% of SNAP recipients. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the percentage of the U.S. labor force that has a doctoral degree is around 2%. That puts Moneywatch's so-called PhD food stamp rate at about 5% of the workforce. With an unemployment rate of 10% at that time, I would conclude that a PhD is more recession-proof than other education levels. Okay, so that didn't work. Let's go after those snooty academics and their secretaries.
5. Academic jobs are tough to find. According to the authors of the book Higher Education, America produced more than 100,000 doctoral degrees between 2005 and 2009. During that period, however, only 16,000 new professorships were created. Here's another grim stat from the National Science Foundation. Only 14% of Americans with a doctorate in biology and the life sciences are landing an academic position within 5 years of graduating.
I totally agree that academic jobs are hard to find. Fortunately, graduate programs have started shifting away from cloning faculty to providing training for a wide variety of compatible careers. According to NCSES Survey of Earned Doctorates data tables, there were more like 235,000 research doctorates awarded between 2005 and 2009 inclusive. That number rose to nearly 275,000 a decade later from 2015 through 2019. And as recently as 2022, only 33% of doctoral recipients opted for a job in academia, whereas it was 52% in 2002. According to the same survey, a full 2/3 of doctorate earners in the biological and biomedical sciences found non-postdoctoral employment in the private sector. More on academic jobs in a moment, but first,
6. It could cost you. About 40% of PhD candidates borrow money to obtain their degrees, with the average debt nearly $37,000 according to finaid.org. This debt would be on top of any loans a student assumed as an undergraduate.
Another good point, but the numbers have changed. I have a separate podcast on financial implications of going to graduate school, and there are tools on my website to help prospective students make their decision. We all know that student debt level is a massive problem and that our nation's student loan programs are a mess. But like any investment, the debt level is only part of the story. If avoiding all debt were the ideal scenario, then we wouldn't have a mortgage or take out a car loan. We wouldn't feed or clothe our kids either. What a financial burden they are. We continuously make decisions about what to spend money on and how to invest in ourselves. It's not about the debt level we have, it's about our return on investment, ROI. If you have to take out $37,000 in additional debt to earn $1.2 million more over your bachelor's degree, isn't that a good investment? There are also downsides to the ROI approach, especially for some master's level programs, but the purely financial approach doesn't account for intangibles like happiness, which is the subject of another of my podcasts.
7. You probably won't get tenure. The old model of academics paying their dues and ultimately securing tenure for life at a tree-lined campus is archaic. Non-tenure track jobs now account for 68% of all faculty appointments in the United States, according to the American Association of University Professors.
There's a lot wrong with this statement. First, it's patently false to say you probably won't get tenure. If you enter a tenure track position, the odds of getting tenure are a little over 50%, according to one large research-intensive public university in a 2006 study. While this institution is probably representative of most of its peers, it turns out that measuring tenure rates is difficult. It's partly a reporting problem and partly a definitional problem. You first have to determine the time period you're looking at, just like you do with time to degree. Tenure within 6 years, 7 years, 10 years? There's no accepted definition. Faculty stop the tenure clock for a variety of reasons, including family leave and global pandemics. Second, there's little information on faculty who leave a tenure track position voluntarily, like to accept a position at another institution, the private sector, or to change careers, compared with those who are outright denied tenure by the institution. My anecdotal experience is that, with the exception of a handful of elite privates where faculty candidates are told outright that multiple individuals are being hired for a single tenure position and that their tenure review will consist of a national search for the best person to replace them, the tenure process is mostly spelled out in faculty handbooks, and institutions are supportive of their junior faculty. They've invested a great deal of money in their faculty hires and ultimately want to see them succeed. So I would put the tenure success rate, as ill-defined as it is, well north of 50% across all institutions. At any rate, the odds are that you probably will get tenure. Yes, it's an archaic model, and yes, it's under scrutiny. Tenure is even getting revoked and revised on some campuses, so it's worth paying attention to. AAUP reports that in 2019, only 36.5% were either tenure or tenure track, with 63% contingent faculty. That's what we call non-tenure track faculty, contingent faculty. And the number of institutions converting tenure track positions to contingent positions is growing. In 2022, over 50% of institutions reported replacing tenure lines with contingent appointments in the last 5 years. But the fact that non-tenure track jobs account for an ever larger percentage of faculty appointments in the U.S. has nothing to do with whether or not you'll get tenure. If you enter a non-tenure position, you will never get tenure by definition. Just like you won't get any money if you take a non-paying job. Go figure. I think the point she's trying to make is that we have a contingent faculty problem in the United States. She's right. There's a terrible problem. But she's conflating the contingent faculty problem with tenure. The two have nothing to do with one another.
8. College presidents would eliminate tenure if they could. In a Pew Research Center survey, less than a quarter of college presidents said they favor having most of their faculty as full-time tenured professors.
Why is this a reason not to get a PhD? Social media influencers don't have tenure either, but there's plenty of those around.
9. More than 50% of faculty are part-timers. Part-time faculty usually don't have access to health insurance, retirement plans, and other benefits.
Okay, now you're just being repetitive. This was the same reason used for not getting tenure and college presidents not wanting tenure-track faculty. So there's really only 10 different points on your list now. I'll repeat myself too then. Yes, we have a contingent faculty problem. I wouldn't encourage anyone to take these kinds of jobs as long-term career choices. Short-term needs can vary by individual, so there's a place for contingent faculty, but they're woefully underpaid for the services they perform. They don't necessarily have access to employer contribution retirement plans, but they can still set up their own retirement plans. The healthcare situation has changed since 2012 so that part-time faculty can get access to health insurance just like any other American, and they're actually subject to the same academic calendar as full-time faculty, so I'm not sure what other benefits she's referring to.
10. Jobs can also be scarce outside academia. PhD holders in the humanities have long struggled to find jobs related to their expertise, but it's also becoming challenging in the sciences. For instance, the pharmaceutical industry was once a job haven for PhD grads in chemistry and biology, but that pipeline has largely dried up as the industry has consolidated and moved jobs outside the U.S.
Isn't this the same reason as number 5? I guess we're down to 9 reasons now. And of course, by all means, pick on the humanities, the old English PhD as taxi driver anecdote. I guess it would be Uber driver today. If you want to bash the PhD writ large, just take shots at the humanities. But they really aren't that different than any other PhD holder. According to the National Science Foundation, in 2017, the latest year for which we have data, 2/3 of humanities' early career doctorate holders, those who obtained their doctoral degree within the past 10 years, had the same career aspirations as when their doctorate was awarded, the same percentage as all early career doctorate holders. And 79% of them would take the same position again if starting over. Again, the same as all early career doctorates. Humanities indicators from the American Academy of Arts and Sciences puts the job satisfaction for humanities PhD recipients even higher, 90%. Ironically, that's higher than Uber drivers' job satisfaction rating at 81%. And pharmaceutical industry jobs drying up? You wouldn't have known this in 2012, but there will be a global pandemic in 2020, so I hope not too many PhD chemists and biologists took your advice.
11. Graduate schools play with the numbers. It's hard to find graduate schools that provide meaningful job placement information about their alums. If schools don't track where their PhDs end up, they won't have to share their dreadful track records.
Laugh out loud, steaming poop emoji. Schools are sharing their track records, and they're not dreadful. Here's just 3, and I didn't even have to try that hard. University of Texas at Austin, University of California, Riverside, Brown University. Check my website and the transcript for the links. There's even an employment dashboard for non-Uber driving English PhDs from the Ohio State University. Want to see a really cool study on where a university's PhDs end up? Look at the University of Toronto's 10,000 PhD project. To be fair, job placement and career tracking at the graduate degree level have really changed in the past decade. I suppose this person could take credit for creating change through a single Moneywatch article, but I attribute it to reports like The Path Forward from the Council of Graduate Schools and ETS, the work of people like Jim Grossman at the American Historical Association on Alternative Careers for Humanists, and the 2012 National Institutes of Health report on the biomedical sciences workforce, just to name a few. And finally,
12. Unfortunately, you can't eat prestige, but you can write obscure papers that only a handful of people will read.
Or you can write just one that only one person will read. Thank you for joining me today. All of the copious links referred to in this podcast are available on my website at Grad-post.com. That's GRAD-POST. There you'll find additional podcasts and resources to help you plan your adventure for an advanced degree. Do more than a 359-degree analysis when you run across articles like this, because every degree counts.